So just to like, I think Dark Lord is like either a really weak tier 1 or a tier 2. Dark Lord FA, it's a really weak tier 2 or a tier 3. Blue Eyes. Okay, this is an opinion I've been talking with Sniffus about, and it's like, in a best of 1, Blue Eyes is really not that strong. Because, uh, or like, in a, I don't know, in a best of 1, you have to expect everyone's just gonna go for the most aggressive sack, like, oriented strategy. So you gotta expect like Automats and Cyber Dragons are in full effect. So every time you're playing a game, you have to commit to the board something. Otherwise, like if you just set stone and pass, like that's not enough. Like Cyber Dragon is gonna go fusion support, fusion gate, or fusion support, fusion spell, attack 3 times per game, on to the next one. Like, to really compete with some of these other decks, or like to compete with the aggro decks, you need Spirit Dragon, and in some cases Spirit Dragon isn't enough, you need back row. Automat, okay, I have a very controversial opinion on Automat, so I'm gonna hold off on that. Fire Kings, I think it Fire Kings is weird. I think it could be tier 3, but I could also see it like not being on the tier list. It's like, I want Fire Kings to be good. I just like test it so much, and it's like, I feel like it's just not as dependable as I want it to be. What's the opinion on Automats? I'll get back to Automats. Cyber Dragons? Cyber... Okay. Because this is best... Alright, I am... Red disclaimer... point 24 text. This is best of one KC Cup format. Alright? Like, I just want to make this 100% clear that these are the conditions under which these opinions apply, alright? With side deck, like, I think some of these decks are either up or down, but in KC Cup format, I think Cyber Dragons, it's either tier 1 or tier 2. It's like, it's fast, it's aggressive, like your bad matchups are very limited. It's really just Dark Lords, I think, and Automat. So those are like the limiting factors, but there is no deck that can say I will win every game against Cyber Dragons. It just doesn't happen because Cyber Dragon the capability of the deck is like, I can kill through anything as long as I draw a strong enough hand. So for that reason, Cyber Dragon is like tier 2. And now I guess I can go back to Automat. I think Automat is the best deck in best one. Like, it's just so dumb. Like, just think about the entire game since last banlist. Like, what deck has a consistency skill? Automat. And what else? Like, think about it. What deck in the game has a consistency skill? Like, what if you don't draw a True Nade? It's like, man, I don't know. It's like you really need True Nade in some of the matchups, but it's like, would you ever want to run a back row deck into Automat? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, Automat's gonna lose to back row, but if they see True Nade, then they just ignore the back row and you lose. Because you're probably using multiple back row, you know? It's just hard to, like, True Nade is such a polarizing card, and you know what? Let me notepad for okay. Um, yeah. So that is another thing on the wish list. Ban Trunade. I think this game does not need a card that degenerate. Anyway, um, Automat, like the consistency of Automat is just head over heels above literally every other deck. If you see two Automat cards, literally any name, you can kill over an open board. Because you return both for Sister and Coat. Sister searches tag, summon Coat, and then you activate tag, you do 12/28. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, this is deck is so much more consistent than literally everything else. And does it have to run Trunade to play through any sort of back row? Unfortunately, yeah. Like, the annoying part about Automat is that if there is back row, you kind of just need to see Trunade, otherwise you're not going to be able to play through it. However, if there is not back row, then it's just you play for free, and if there is back row and you see Trunade, you just play for free. What about hand traps? Like, hand traps are pretty effective against Automat. However, they're not like they're not the 100% solution. It's so tilty when you see Blue Eyes plus back row and you don't have Trunade. Yeah, that's like Automat has clear weaknesses in the sense like the consistency is not in the engine. The engine is hyper consistent. I don't think we've ever had a strategy nearly as consistent as Automat. It's just, can you see Trunade? Trunade is the inconsistency of Automat. Like, there is no inconsistency in Automat besides Trunade. That is the only card that's like inconsistent. And I guess Do draw. So like those two qualities of the deck, it's not like, I don't know. What if we lost Trunade and kept the skill? I think if you get rid of Trunade, the deck has to like play slower, or like it can't play through an interruption. Therefore, back row can return to the game, and like we can have games that don't end on by turn 3 at the latest, you know? Like, for that reason, Automat is just so hey, Trunaked. Yet. Like, playlist back row because of Automats proceed to lose to Blue Eyes. What about Sanctified? Like, I think Dark Lords. The thing of Dark Lords is that I really just don't like the consistency of the deck. However, it's still a super powerful strategy. Like, Dark Lord power level of like Stick Chair is just, it's comparable to like the strongest Cyber Dragon hand, that such that the strongest Dark Lord hand beats pretty much everything. So like it's the only thing that's fighting the best Cyber Dragon hand. The difference is that the best Dark Lord hand, they will see it more often than Cydra. But yeah. And then Harpies, I think it's tier 3. Like, Harpies just struggles so hard against Cydra and Automat. I think it has a good matchup against Dark Lord, and I think it should do pretty decent against Blue Eyes, but like, These two decks are just so fast that you can't really justify playing Harpies, I think. Um, the only way you can make Harpy, the only way you can make a back row deck work is if you run stuff like Mirror Wall and Head Judging. Both of them can let you both of them don't get true naded or don't fly off the field when your opponent true nades inevitably, and Mirror Wall helps you not get OTK'd and potentially trigger a Destiny draw if you're running Fire Kings. In Harpy is not as applicable. Bounce back their Blue Eyes, enable ultimate. Yeah, that's another issue with Harpies. You can bounce back Blue Eyes monsters, but then they just use this skill, and you kind of if you bounce a Blue Eyes back to the hand, they can just summon an alternative, force the Harpy effect, and then fuse off. So it's well, what was the point, you know? So there's some clear weaknesses with Harpies, I think, but it just is good against Dark Lords and decent against Blue Eyes, and can use back row. So because it has back row, then it can if Onomat doesn't see True Nade, it wins. Wow. But if Onomat sees True Nade, it's just a wash, which is kind of sad. But so it goes. I was told we get Perfumer mid-April. I was lied to. Oracle. Yeah, thing is, I'm not sure if Oracle is gonna solve the problem. And then Evil Eye. I don't know. I know some people have been talking about Evil Eye, but I'm not sure if I can confidently say Evil Eye will be in the tiered section. Yes, problem with Harpy is it has no room for back row removal. I don't think the lack of back row removal is really an issue for Harpies. They can run Lance as a defensive card, and they can also run Harpy's Hunting Ground, so they can just, blow up a ton of back row just by normal summoning and special summoning. So, it's not that they lack removal, it's just that their first turn is kind of low value. It's an even weaker version of Noble Knights. Your first turn is kind of weak and somewhat easy to interrupt, but after that first turn you're already going, so stuff like Harpy's Feather Rest, Hysteric Party, or if you run cards like Hysteric Sign, that generates a lot of advantage. So the follow-up turns for Harpies can be really strong, and you just plus a bunch, but it's really the early game that you kind of fall short, and falling short in the early game is essentially a death sentence against Onomat and Cyber Dragons, which is it's sad, but it's the game we play. And yeah, this is my general thoughts on what I think the tier list kind of looks like at the moment, or it should look like.